right. Hello, everyone. We're going to talk about reentry on the way out of this conference. First of all, I would like to thank TIFA, just in general, for hiring Tracy Williams to do reentry. So, my name is Brandon Warren. I'm formerly incarcerated. I finished my GED through Wyndham. I did an associate's degree through Lee College, worked my way through the academic system, and recently finished a doctorate of education at the University of St. Thomas in Houston. And I've been working inside of TDCJ now for 11 years, first with the seminary program on the Darrington unit. I helped them create that, and I was there for about 6 years. And now I work for Lee College as a full-time reentry specialist. So I've been helping them develop a reentry program. I also still get to teach as an adjunct at all the different prisons that Lee College touches. So I'm really glad that that I got to be here, and I thought it was really awesome when I heard that not only had Tracy made parole, but that he already had a job doing something that he was in fact already doing while he was serving time by helping people in prison understand what they needed to prepare for on their way out. So I think it's just really amazing what he's done and what TIFA is doing. So I thank you for that. So we have a panel today of guests which represent Austin, Dallas-Fort Worth, and Houston. And so we're going to talk a little bit about who we are, what we do, and how we might be of service to you and your families when it comes to reentry. So with that, we'll just start off. I'll start here with Cheri. If you all can just explain who you are, the organization, and what its relevance is in the world of reentry.
Hi everyone, thank you for having me. I'm Cheri Garcia with Cornbread. We are a staffing agency for second chances. So we help people coming out of prison or people in recovery find meaningful employment.
Hello everyone, my name is Belton. I'm formerly incarcerated myself. I'm a volunteer at TDCJ. I also work for the city of Houston, and I manage what we call Transform in my organization. So as a part of that, I help a lot of guys within the organization who have gone through this process and have jobs now, how they can continue to grow in their careers.
Hi everybody, I'm Sean O'Brien. I work with Recovery ATX out of Austin, Texas. I'm formerly incarcerated and I'm a person in long-term recovery. What we do with the Recovery ATX, I'm going to let Anna explain a little bit because she works with me. My position is as a reentry specialist and as a recovery support specialist. So I help people navigate the reentry and recovery. A lot of times reentry and drug and or substance use can kind of go together. So we help them navigate those systems.
Hi everyone, I'm Anna Ripley with Recovery ATX, and I say instead of ATX for Austin, A stands for all of Texas, because we do provide virtual services across the entire state for people that are looking for support however they decide in recovery as they define it. So multiple pathways, including under the umbrella of harm reduction. Abstinence is not required. I always tell them people experiencing homelessness, if they don't have health care, if they don't have a phone, we work with them. We don't need an address, an ID, or anything. We are a no barrier service to people that just want to get connected and support, because community is the solution to addiction.
All right, thank you. So I wanted to start us off by discussing challenging issues in our individual roles with reentry. What is some of the more challenging issues, either broadly speaking or relative to your particular industry? So, for example, with me, in helping Lee College with their reentry work, it runs the gamut. The things I focus on specifically are supposed to be helping them get into jobs and or helping them move into a university to continue their education upon release. But in doing that, you obviously end up helping with things like transportation and housing and identification and just everything that you can imagine when it comes to reentry. I have found that housing is probably the most difficult thing for someone coming out of prison if they're trying to get into housing on their own, under their own name. If they have help, if they're in a halfway house, that they have friends and family, then that's it's a given. But for me, housing seems to be one of the most difficult areas of concern. So I've been out now 16 years, and I've worked through the educational process. I've been working inside TDCJ. I've done a lot of things, but when I go to just any old apartment complex and try to get an apartment, they don't care about all of those things that I've done. All they care about is the paperwork, my background check, which reflects that I'm a villain if you read it black and white and you don't know me. And so there's several ways around this. One of the things that I've done is just talk directly with a manager to see if they'll, make an exception, and that has in fact happened one time. Other times I have talked to an apartment locator service who told me what kind of background checks the apartments did. So in one scenario, you want to find out apartments that will allow felons, but in another scenario, you can also find out what kind of background checks are done to see if you would qualify before wasting your time and getting very frustrated talking to someone who probably has no authority to say that, and make exceptions that you can stay there. So for me, housing has been probably the most difficult area of them all. Our students at Lee College, at least, actually about 85% of them find a job within a month. So that's a survey that I did recently. So we're doing pretty good in the job front, but housing is really difficult.
He's absolutely right. As a staffing agency for Second Chances, there are a lot of employers out there that simply just need good workers. So when the pandemic started, I thought we were going to lose all of our business. We freaked out and we pivoted to a disinfecting company. And it was very successful, but what we didn't know is that our business would explode because of all the people on unemployment. Everyone said, okay, maybe we should give these people a chance because production is shut down. They're not eligible for unemployment because they had no work history. So we were able to grow exponentially. But the problem that we still face is the housing. He's right. A lot of people want to talk about housing, transportation, and job. Those are all things that are barriers to reentry. But the other thing is mental health. Help with mental health. Because I've seen people come out and have all three of those things taken care of, but the biggest barrier is themselves. Because they get in the way of themselves because they haven't worked through their trauma or they haven't talked about the things that they saw in prison that forever changed their life, the PTSD, or the things that happened before prison that led to them getting to prison. If we don't address the root of the cause, then we can give the housing, we can give the transportation, we can give the jobs, but people will get in their own way. And that's why 12-step programs are really powerful. And what these folks down here are doing is so powerful because it's actually helping people get to the root of the problem. But Cornbread Hustle is actively working on partnerships with community developers, trying to figure out this housing need. It's very difficult. I've become a landlord because for our own employees, because I have employees that come to work every single day. I have 15 recruiters, all formerly incarcerated. We have about 300 employees that work under them, and none of them have a safe, stable place to live. They live in either a budget suite or they're still in a transition home. And there were a few of them that I was like, oh my gosh, I guess we're just gonna have to become landlords at this point. So it is, even for a company like mine, it's that much of a barrier, the housing situation. So I agree with you.
Yes, housing is a big issue, but I want to touch on what you said about the mental side. That's why I feel my strength is, and that's why or where I bring the most value to the people that I talk to, whether I'm inside or outside, is that you have to have a perspective on things. And many times without the right perspective, there is no answer for this housing right away, right? Like we just heard how hard it is legislatively to get anything done. So is this gonna change overnight? No, it's not. Is there going to be a magic pill that comes? No. So how do I process that? How do I deal with that? And one of the ways that I deal with people on the outside is to remind them of what they've been through on the inside. You have survived something that most people could never deal with, in their lifetime. And now is not the time to quit. An example is during COVID, how many people went through quarantine? And you saw how you felt in quarantine. It was like, man, can I please get out of quarantine? Well, just imagine how these guys feel. It's just that simple. And allowing other people to see things from a different perspective is what I do to push them forward. Because without it, they'll give up. The challenges, whether it be housing, whether it be getting a job. I remember when I got out, I went to job after job after job. I told my family, getting a job is my job. And when you talk about parole, changing how parole works, well, they told me a stipulation of my parole is getting a job. And so this pressure is on you to get a job. So I go out, try to get a job, and I find out that I'm not being accepted because of my record, obviously. But I purposely planned to go to places who would accept felons, and they still were rejected. And I found out that someone used my identity just as an alias. And so getting a job now, I have to carry a piece of paper with me every day that says, I'm the real Ray Belton. And I bring attention to the fact that I'm a felon. Whether they ask for it or not, I have to do this because my social is involved. So I have to bring attention to this. And these type of things are what others have faced. And there's no answer for that. How do you get past that? And so it's only your mental ability to face these things and to get over these things. So I always tell people, you have to deal with your perspective on life. You have to have a purpose for whatever it is that you're trying to do, and then you got to be patient, and that's the only way you get through it. Those 3 P's will get you through it.
So I'm going to test this one out. So we're going to have to pass back and forth. They handed me this one, and I'm going to dust this little soapbox off. I'm going to get on for a second and say, first off, I do community engagement and outreach with Recovery ATX now. And one of the things I do is I go out and engage with other mutual aid organizations, not just in Austin, but the surrounding area, entire state, if possible, sometimes on a national level. So if you are here with an organization, please find me afterwards, take our information and get in touch. My cards are out there, Sean's cards are out there. One of the things that I mentioned, like the 12-step program. So this is very beneficial for people that are okay with doing that. We support multiple pathways, including not abstinence. We don't require somebody to be sober to find support. That's, they just got out. They're going to be able to have some freedoms. They should be able to be treated with dignity and respect like all adults. So maybe abstinence isn't for them. But guess what? They still can get support to find housing needs met, to find food, to find jobs. We do the connection, and we do that from pure experience, which means we have lived experience. We have people that have dealt with CPS. We have people that have dealt with mental health issues. We have had behavioral health issues, justice involvement, you name it. We have military veteran working for us. We've got this wealth of experience because of that. In fact, we told somebody last week, it's like, if you have during a job interview, if you happen to have a felony background history or drug experience, please tell us, because it actually helps this time. We will train people. We offer scholarships to train them on how to be peer recovery coaches as well with our agency. So we can, and this is a job market that is hot right now. And in fact, we're still hiring, with a living wage, with benefits that people can go into because of their experience being incarcerated, being justice involved. being a family member of someone who is justice involved. You know, having that lived experience is that recovery capital. And recovery is self-defined. So that's one of those things. If I'm a harm reductionist. If somebody needs to know how to use safer, so they're not in chaotic use until they're able to get their life together, I'm all for it and I'll support them, whatever their goal is. If it's just to stop drinking, but they're okay with doing something else, let's focus on that. It's their choice. And that's what I promote. And I want them to feel that connection because isolation and stigma is oppression. And they've had enough of that already. We need to just treat them like human beings, right? These are the people that we care for, and this is how we care for them. So, that being said, no address, no insurance, no anything, no ID, no problem. They can come and get support. We can support them as soon as they are out. They can be connected with us, but we want to go in. We want to reach in and connect them with services before they get to that point. Because that reentry moment is when they're at the highest risk for overdose and death when it comes to use. Because they have use involved, tolerances change, right? The drugs, their supply has changed. There's a lot of stuff out there on the streets. It's not what it says it is anymore, right? So we want to be able to provide a safe space where they can be honest and be their whole self. You know, 12 steps, moderation management, life brings, well variety, which is for people that are indigenous heritage. There's so many different pathways, and we can help people figure those out, whatever works for them. So, very person-centered. Just wanted to throw it out there. We do not tell anybody what to do. We're there beside them. We don't send people to resources that don't work. We check them out first, or we go with them. We want to make sure that if they need us as an advocate, we're there. But if they just need us as a buddy in the room, we're there for that too. So virtual meetings are available. Check us out online, recoverytexas.org.
You know, Anna talked about reaching in, right? And it's been my experience that a successful reentry begins day one of your incarceration, right? However, when's the best day to plant a tree? 20 years ago, right? When's the second best day? Today, right? So if we didn't start day one, let's start today, right? I've been out of prison 6 months, so I like to call my reentry real-time reentry. So if I can have 1 minute and then I'll close up quickly, I'll take you on a little bit of a visual journey here, okay? To imagine, because Cheri talked about trauma, and you also hit on that, and I think that's a very important piece that is missed, right? So let me take, very close to Houston, right? So now, what's down there? NASA, right? NASA sends rocket ships up to space, right? So imagine your loved one's a rocket ship, right? And they get launched up to space, right? And they're in this different atmosphere. They go into this different environment that you'll never know anything about. There's different laws up there. It's a different everything up there, right? They do an orbit. They make parole. And then they come back, right? What is coming back down to Earth called? Reentry, right? What happens on that reentry? I know Adam knows. Five. It's, turbulence. Right? So it's a very traumatic experience coming back in, right? However, we can do it if we gear up and support each other. And that's what Recovery ATX, that's my mission, is to reach into the prisons, help the people in there start their reentry earlier so when they get out, they can have a better, easier reentry and not get burned out and smashed into the Indian Ocean. Thanks.
Well, I am stealing that analogy from now on as I talk to the guys and the ladies in prison, because I've also had the opportunity to go out to Plain State Jail. So I've never heard that one. I'm definitely stealing that, but I'll give you credit. So another question, and some of you have already sort of hit on this, is how can we, or what can we suggest to the families about how they can help prepare their loved one for reentry? This can be just broadly speaking in reentry, or it could be specifically geared towards the services that you provide. How can the families best prepare their loved one to, zero in and get help from your particular organization? Or it could just be broadly speaking. So my bias is in education. And so I always encourage people who are incarcerated to pursue their education. Now, that can mean formal education, like college and getting in, Wyndham to pursue a GED, or even like cognitive intervention or the new life coach classes. There's a wide variety of educational opportunities that they should pursue, and I always encourage that. But I also encourage their informal, personal education on a wide variety of subjects as well, because sometimes they will get into the rut of thinking that if they get a bunch of certificates, that it's going to help them make parole or it's going to look good on a job. And that's fine, but that's really short-sighted. Getting educated should be something that is beyond merely the, award of a piece of paper or certification. But studying on their own informally or participating in educational programs, I think is going to be the number one thing that's going to prepare them for just about anything they encounter. And one of the reasons I say that is because in all of the services that we provide, these things change so frequently. People's positions change, titles change, who's there today might not be there in 6 months, programs change, funding changes. It's a complex landscape. So for me to go in and provide the number to this organization or this organization, that might not be legitimate in the next 6 months. But through their education, when they learn how to, like we were talking about earlier, develop resilience or perseverance or creativity or resourcefulness, they develop these sort of character attributes that enable them to pursue that landscape regardless of all the no's that they're going to face and the brick walls that they're going to run into. So I strongly encourage education. I was talking to somebody the other day who said, if you've been in, it was Mark, he was here earlier, sort of like 13, 14 years. He said, if you've been in prison for 20 years and haven't done anything with regard to education, don't even have a GED, you're in last place. And I have to say, yeah, if you are in prison, you have so many different opportunities to pursue your education, and that is what is going to help you greatly, regardless of what you encounter upon release.
So if I was a family member of somebody who's in prison, I would go home right now and I would tell them, hey, are you in any programs where volunteers come in? Because volunteers are coming into prison all the time. Is there somebody that has something that you want, whether it be he's a family man or the way he carries himself, or is she, if there's somebody that has what you want, just go up to them and say, hey, can you give me 3 tips on how to get to where you are today? And the second you open your mouth and say that, they're going to be so excited that you even asked, and they're not only going to give you those tips, but that's going to open up conversation, and chances are you end up staying connected to that person even when you get out. That's how Cornbread Hustle started. I started going into prisons 10 years ago as a volunteer, and people would come up to me and be like, I want to be an entrepreneur too. You invented a product, right? How do I do that? And so I'd be like, okay, just do this, this, and that. Like, if I'm going into prison volunteering in the first place, obviously God put a calling on my heart to be there. So it's going to excite me if somebody comes up to me and asks for some help. Fast forward to today, that's how Cornbread Hustle was born, because people started reaching out to me when they got out, and they were like, okay, so this invention idea I have, and I was like, okay, you need to get your driver's license and a job. This isn't realistic, but let's reverse engineer what your dreams are. What do you really want to do, okay? And then we'd get on Google and we'd search for jobs, and then I would call and be like, hi, my name is Cheri, I'm advocating for this person, would you give him or her a chance? Fast forward, most of those people now make 6 figures, either running their own business or getting a job that they wanted, all because they walked up to a volunteer and said, can we connect? Now, I know there's a lot of rules in prison and you can't talk while they're still in prison and send letters or anything like that. But through the volunteer program, and then whenever you get out and they're still in the reentry programs, there are ways that you can still stay connected. For me, people reached out via Facebook, and now they're part of my program, and half of them work for me. So talk to volunteers is my advice to anybody in prison.
Thank you. That was great. I'm going to deviate just a little bit because you said something. The panel that was on advocacy, I want to say this. and to TDCJ, one of the rules when you get out is that you can't hang with other felons. But something that I want you to think about is that, yes, it's a crowd that may take us in, but once we're in and we're trying to rehabilitate, we create a crowd that is good. And that crowd will help us because they understand us and they know us. And they are doing the right thing and they're getting an education and they're trying to change their life. But you tell me I can't hang with them and I can't be around them. And all I'm left to hang with now are people who came from where I came from, who didn't get caught. So this just something to think about. And for families, well, in terms of any way that I could help, I'm partnering with Freedom Granted Initiative, so you can reach out to Freedom Granted Initiative. But to you families, I have a very simple thing that I would say to you to help your family member. And it's simply this: ask them. What is it that they need? Ask them. Don't guess. Don't ask me. Don't ask Cheri. Don't ask anybody up here. Ask them what they need, and they'll tell you what they need. And that's how you help.
You know, Cheri talked about reverse engineering, right? So somebody asked me, after I didn't serve a long time, I served about 3.5, 4 years. And they asked me while I was in prison, how do you wake up with such a sunny disposition all the time? And I said, well, I wake up, I smile and I laugh, and I work backwards, right? And she also talked about me finding somebody. You know, there are masterminds among us at all times. There are always masterminds among us. Find out who is your mastermind and go and ask them how they did what they did, you know. It's not a coincidence I'm sitting up here with Brandon Warren. He was one of the guys I sought out, right? And I said, okay, I gotta follow what he did. And that's what I did, and that's what I continue to do. So I would encourage the family members to spread that message. There are masterminds among us, right? Go out and find them, right? I would also, I'm a very grassroots type of guy, right? One of the reasons we're up here is we have literature outside, Recovery ATX, right? It has our address on it. Tell your loved ones to write me. I will JPay. And then when they get out, we can start working together. We can start working together in that fashion, you know? That's a kind of innovative thinking that we need to help people with a more successful reentry.
Good points, both of y'all. So for me, the main focus that I want to have is that people can't survive and thrive if they aren't alive. And we also provide Narcan and harm reduction resources. And one of those things, Narcan is an overdose reversal drug for people that use opioids, whether intentionally or accidentally, because, you know, if grandma takes too many Percocets because she forgot she took a Percocet, you're going to need Narcan. We have some of this here today. You can get it at your local pharmacy. Anyone with an opioid prescription should be receiving this from their pharmacist. You know, but there's a lot of stigma around this thing that saves lives. Also, this is the last resort. Somebody has to literally be dying in front of you for it to work. Harm reduction goes before that. Harm reduction is treating people with dignity and respect. Harm reduction is, like you said, asking them what they want, what they need, and trying to address those needs. And listening to the people that are in that position. That's not where you're at. And so harm reduction bills keep coming to, and I heard this before earlier, there's a lot of bills that have been just left in committee and never make it out to the floor in the first place. There have been harm reduction bills in the past here in Texas for years. There have been harm reduction agencies actively working in Texas for over 30 years, and it is still not legal to do this, to provide people with safer use supplies so we're not spreading HIV and hepatitis C among the IV drug user populations. You know, but the reality is, we know it's out there. We know this is happening. We know that this contributes to disparity because people that need wound care, people that have this IV drug use, are further stigmatized and pushed further out. So we can get to them before they return to use once they leave the system, once they join us again. and talk to them about, hey, let's put this in place. Because if you go back to using, it's likely that the supplies change and you will die. We don't want that to happen. Here's some education around it. Here's how, if this is what you really are going to do, here's how to safely do that and moderate until you're ready to get to where you're at, to where you can join the community that is abusive, right? But not shaming, not blaming, and not casting them out with stigma and judgment, because that doesn't save anybody. It only creates a divide. So we're here to support, we're here to reach out, we're here to make people feel like they're a part of a community that is ever growing. And I want y'all to be a part of that. So please, if you do have a business card, put it in our jar. We will be providing for a $25 Amazon gift card. Throw that out there. And if you don't have a business card with you, grab one of ours and write your email on the back of it with your name. We'll put you in the drawing. Take some candy. Thank you.
Can I say something before? I don't know if we, I appreciate everyone that's been here today, and a lot of people that spoke on a lot of different things, okay? My son did 8 years on a 15-year stretch, okay? And when he first got incarcerated, I was embarrassed. I really was. And that is a problem now. I mean, people are embarrassed to talk about their loved one. They made a mistake, but they're still your loved one. Communicate this to other people. It took me a while to reach out to even open up to talk about my son being incarcerated, because at first I was embarrassed. I was, which, I look around, there's more of you guys than there is people of color. And there's most of us locked up. And I'm just, being honest with you. Just get out and speak to somebody that has a loved one that is incarcerated. Don't even be embarrassed. Help them. Give them the tools that they need to help them get out. And like you said, sir, get out and get a job. Don't be afraid. I know that felony is going to follow you wherever you go. But they still have a chance at life. They still have a chance at life. So I open this to everybody. Don't be afraid to, don't be ashamed of your love just because they made a mistake. We all make mistakes in life. But there's life. There is life.
Let me say,
Thank you so much, because that is exactly one of the things I love about where I'm at right now. This is a room full of advocates. We have an advocacy panel here, yeah. But every single person in this room is an advocate and can speak up for the people that they care about and the people that we are here serving on a better purpose. So thank you so much for having that voice. That is exactly what we need more of. Thank you.
Yeah.
So actually with that, I wanted to see if there were any questions you all had for any of us up here on the panel. And one thing I did want to comment on what you said back there is that I think especially since 2008, and this is a long, broader discussion, but that the stigma that has historically been associated with people coming out of prison is less and less as we move into the future for a number of reasons, one of which is the mass incarceration. People who work inside of TDCJ or police officers, they more than likely have family and friends who are in prison, so it's not like they're strangers, where maybe that wasn't the case in the 70s or 60s, but there's so many people who have been affected by mass incarceration that everyone knows someone and knows that they are not the evil villain that historically we have been categorized as. So I think there has been a lot of movement towards, being much more accepting of people with felony backgrounds. So with that said, is there any questions anyone has for us up here on the panel? Yes, and you want to do the speak up?
I don't need it. I think I can talk loud enough. But I'm a criminal justice major, and I used to be very hard-nosed in my beliefs. Lock them away and throw away the key. I used to be very, very firm on that. Until I had 3 friends from high school end up incarcerated in TDCJ. And I started my CJ degree in Louisiana, where they were very hard on their stance on criminals. I've had professors that are police officers, DAs, defense attorneys, judges, you can name it, I've had them as professors. And surprising to me, their stigma was prison is like Burger King. You can have it your way, all the way. And so in my mind, when I started, I was young, so in my mind, I thought that's the way that it was. Until I started entering into TDCJ to visit my friends, and I started seeing how things really were. And how mistreated they are. Now, we have TDCJ here, and I can say that my opinion has changed a lot in the years that I studied, and I have a different mentality. I'm here today because I want to be an advocate. Contrary to popular belief, me standing here now, this is God talking through me, because I'm very shy, I'm very reserved, but I did a lot of praying on the way here today, and I said, God, you tell me what I need to say. So He's telling me you need to speak up. I spoke earlier on mental health. That is something that has affected me. It started to affect me 4 years in 2012, and it still affects me today from a 4-year marriage to a man incarcerated. And I don't blame him. I blame the system. I blame what happened to him through his childhood that he never got help for from his parents, that they could clearly see was traumatizing to him, which was deemed from things with his mom and his dad. What y'all are doing is very important. And it is hard for people, and I don't want to use offenders, it's hard for people to find housing. It's hard for them to find jobs. It's hard for them to find acceptance. I once studied in a class, I once read that every fourth person, every 1 in 4 people you pass on the road has been incarcerated. But you would never know that, right? Passing them, coming and going, you would never know that. I would never know if you were incarcerated just talking to you until you told me. But when I'm walking away from you, had you not told me, my opinion of you would have been different. I'd have been, man, I think he is so cool. I really like him. He's smart. He's intelligent. He's got a doctorate, da-da-da-da-da. But if I didn't have the mind frame that I have, if I would have not have had the education that I've had, and you would have said, before you told me all this stuff, I've been incarcerated. On the fly, I'd be ready to walk away, right? I have a negative opinion of you no matter what your accomplishments are. But that is important for us to stand here today and to change our mentality. It's important for us to stand up and speak for our loved ones and speak for other people and speak to TDCJ and speak with other advocates to try to change the mentality of how people perceive the incarcerated. And that's all I'm going to say.
I want to thank the Reentry panel. We really have went over our time, but thank you, Brandon, Dr. Brandon Warren, Belton, Cheri, Garcia, and Ripley, and Sean O'Brien. Y'all have gave us some very informative information to help us. We want to thank everybody for coming out. We had a long conference. It was a lot of information. Mohanda's going to say, be the change that you want to see in the world. And so I think we had a lot of informative information from all the speakers, the panels, even with a little hiccup, we had some informative information. And so we thank the agency, TDC, for coming out and staying the entire time. And I'm going to turn it over to the board.